There is a supernatural world that surrounds us, and sometimes it manifests to people like you and me. You'll hear stories about this and so much more right here on Supernatural Confrontations. Our story today is from a woman who was completely immersed in the New Age. Her name is Jennifer, and we'll get into that and so much more. But first, a word from our trusted sponsor. Low levels of collagen show up in more ways than one. Although saggy skin and wrinkles are the most common that come to mind, did you know that your nails, hair, and joints can also be signs of low collagen levels as well? One of the quickest ways to help combat low levels of collagen is to supplement with a high-quality collagen supplement. And there may not be a better choice than going to healthwithla.com. Healthwithla.com, which uses 5 critically important types of collagen to help provide your skin, hair, nails, and joints the nutrients you need. Look the best this coming spring-summer session for 51% off, plus receive several free bonuses, including VIP health coaching for life, before their half-off sale ends by going to www.healthwithla.com. That's www.healthwithla.com, or simply click more at the bottom of this video in the description box and the link in the description. The best part is you have over 60 days to change your mind if you aren't fully satisfied. Folks, order now and thank me later. I drink it every day, and I am glad I do. I have noticed a difference. So here's Jennifer's testimony. I think you'll find it very interesting. Not the first time we've heard stories like this, but what I love about it is this show gives people like you a platform to come on and tell us your story. And I think it resonates with many people out there. And specifically in Jennifer's case, there are still millions of people that are immersed in New Age beliefs, and hearing Jennifer's story can act as a stepping stone for them to come out of it. Here's Jennifer's testimony. Jennifer, thanks so much for coming on the record and for being bold, adventurous, and daring, and also sort of prodding me to remember to do a Zoom call because somehow our signals got crossed. But here we are, and thank you for being diligent and coming on the record. So something happened. You had a supernatural confrontation. Tell us what happened, please.
Well, thanks, Marzulli. I will share it by going back a little bit because there's a little bit more that's probably needed to fully understand my story. So I grew up in a Christian home, but I like to call us lukewarm Christians because we prayed on Thanksgiving and that's it. And so there wasn't a lot of understanding how to build a relationship with Jesus. And, it's like coming from a big family, but not knowing all of your relatives. And you were introduced to some of them, so you know them by face and name, but you really don't build a relationship with relatives you don't spend any time with. And that's kind of my upbringing. Now, I was brought up surrounded by a family who also kind of they had a relationship with Jesus, but I didn't hear them talk about it. We didn't have communication. It wasn't something we discussed. So I don't know their personal experiences, but it made it very confusing because I came in with lots of gifts. I had the ability to tell when people were going to die, when pets were going to die. I was really upset about that. And I saw a lot of extra sensory, supernatural, demonic mostly throughout my childhood. I mean, it was a regular. I would often say to my friends, I knew that better than I did the real world.
Wow.
So
let me stop you right there. Let me stop you right there. There are people that I've spoken to before who've had exactly the same sort of gifting where they see into the supernatural. The veil is separated and they're seeing things. And it's a very lonely post because who can you talk to really? So I'm
Yeah,
just
people were scared of me.
when you
My
went,
family would be scared of me because, sometimes I would say what they were thinking and, there was a lot of a push me, pull me kind of experiences.
okay,
So, and I also was an only child and had, relatives that were 5 years and extremely older and a few that were 5 years and younger. So there wasn't a lot of commiserating at all anyway. So anyway, to fast forward, I got really angry as a kid because, this happened at school too. And so I went on a 22-year, there's so many, I've had so many experiences. I tried writing some things down yesterday. I had like 5 or 6 pages. So, I've had a lot of experiences and I broke away from the church, essentially spent 22 years searching for answers because I always knew Jesus was real and that everything that he talked about, like the things I remember from Sunday school was the fact that he could lay his hands, he could help the sick, he could, you know, fight with the demons. And I knew that because I had been working to keep myself preserved and alive doing a lot of these things as a kid. And so, I wanted more in understanding, but I didn't really get the Bible. When I tried to read it, I would get sleepy, I would get confused. And I didn't really, honestly, that wasn't something that I logically went to. So I don't know like why that is, if that's common, but I think that it's probably pretty common that, yeah.
what usually when a person tries to read the word and they get sleepy, that's demonic.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
the enemy keeping us away from the very thing that'll set us free. But pick up the story, please.
yeah. So essentially, I'm telling that I know that now, but at the time, this is all the things that were going through my mind. And so as through that 22 years, I explored a lot of different things. I dabbled in all sorts of things. I really got into Buddhism. I really got into oracle cards and psychic readings. In fact, I did fairs and festivals and body work and I did that for years.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, there was quite an adventure. And then back in,
So
yeah,
let me stop you again. So you are, for all practical purposes, completely immersed in what I would call
yes,
the New Age and occult ideology. Is that a fair
absolutely.
statement?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was buying it hook, line, and sinker. In fact, how I describe it to people now is like I had an a la carte Jesus, like everything that fit into my customized a la carte version of him, you know. So I made him comfortable in my reality,
I got
right?
it. I got
And
it.
so, um, I feel very fortunate just to say this. I really feel like God, really had his hand on me the whole time. He protected me from so many things. I can't even like there's so many things that he protected me from. And I think that, ultimately he used everything that the devil wanted to do with me for good. I really think that okay, I'll try to stick to this one story. There's just so many, LA. So essentially, when I was doing research, because I do a lot of research, I wanted to find out some blocks of my childhood. And as I was doing that, I went through all of, the back of the curtain business that all of us are starting to, wake up to, right? I've been doing this for a while. And back in 2020, I was starting to, well, actually 2019, I started to research satanic ritual abuse. And after about 9 months of this, in April of 2020, I had my what I call Thunderbolt to Jesus moment, where I felt him in the room. I was sitting right where I'm sitting now, and he struck me. His presence was so real. And mind you, this whole time, I'd only really felt Jesus once before in all of my life. I've always had pursuit of demonic presences, many, several, I mean, a myriad of many different kinds. So when he showed up, I was very obvious to me, it was very distinctly different. Like there was no comparison, right? So I rented, my clothes, not literally, but for 2 weeks I cried and paced the floor and repented and was just like, oh my God, this, and just regurgitating all of the things that I realized were so wrong and not of him. And then in that 2 weeks, he really kind of walked with me and defined who Jesus really is. So that was beautiful. And at the end of that 2 weeks, I started to kind of settle in like, oh, wow, now I know who I am. Now I know why I was made. Now I know who Jesus really is. At the very end of that, and I can't say if it was exactly the end, but within that 2 week period, it was at the better end of it.
Mhm.
I woke up at 3:33 in the morning to have to go to the bathroom. And I live in a 2-bedroom apartment, and my bedroom is at the very end of the apartment, the very opposite of the living room. I'm sure you've seen the layout, everybody. It's pretty basic. And the bathroom is catty corner from my bedroom. So I got up to walk to the bathroom, and I'm not one who ever, as you can imagine with my childhood, has ever left my house pitch black. I always have lights on. So I always. And in my living room, I have this like big, huge, like Moroccan metal beaten light that flickers, right? And so the living room looks lit up. And so I was walking to the bathroom and I happened to look to the right and I saw on my sofa this giant Egyptian god. And mind you, out of my 22 years, I never really got into studying gods, or like that just never really interested me. I was more interested in other things like the tarot cards. I even made my own oracle deck, like I was more interested in body work and healing and in understanding what people needed, or whatever. So I never really studied that. And so I was like, what is that? Who is that? And I mean, it was this big, huge God, little g, sitting on my sofa. And he was so big, Ellie, that he was about a foot from the ceiling. The ceilings here are like probably almost 11 feet.
Okay.
Okay. And the sofa, it's a regular size sofa, and he almost fit the whole sofa. He was pretty close to being
So
smushed. So he was big.
this is a giant.
He was a giant, no doubt. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, and he had a horse head. And he was dressed, he barely had anything on, but it was all wearing like gold Egyptian, like, the stuff you see from the Egyptian era. And I knew intuitively that if I were to address him or walk closer, I was somehow submitting, somehow coming into agreement. I just knew that, like with my core of my being, God probably downloaded that to me. And so I just was like, nope. And I used the facilities and I sat and prayed because my daughter's room is in between the living room and my bedroom. And I just prayed to cover her, to protect her, to make sure she didn't get up, and, felt that peace and went to sleep. And then it happened exactly the same way the next night. 3:33, I woke up with a huge urge to go to the bathroom, happened to look, there it was again. Same thing, and there was a lure. It was trying to lure me in, there was a pull there, without any doubt. But I had no interest. I mean, I had met Jesus. I knew who Jesus was. I knew what his energy was, what his light was, what his truth was. Like there was no more gray area in my life. And I had struggled for 22 years to understand what that divide was. And now I knew. So there was no way it was going to sucker me into anything. And so, again, I said no, use the facilities, went to bed, prayed that my daughter was covered and protected, and mind you, like the next morning during all of these events, I at first was kind of like, well, do I even sit on my couch? Like I was leery about it. And then I was like, no, you're not taking authority over anything here. Like, I'm not giving you that. I'm not allowing you to take any dominion here.
Mhm.
Like, no. So then the third night it happened again. Same thing. just, I mean, that I'm like almost bolting out of bed, having to go to the bathroom. I look at the clock, sure enough, it's the same time. So of course I look down the hall and there it is again. And I was like, no, like it's always going to be no. Went to the bathroom, didn't even look back, laid down, prayed again that my daughter was covered. And I just felt it break off of me. I just felt that yoke break off of me. And I was like, it's gone. I just knew it. And it didn't come back after that third night. But it was really interesting because, you know, I really got inspired to deep dive into my family history and doing a lot of breaking of generational curses. That's one of the passions that I have right now that I work with other people with, because I was just stunned by how much of the burdens that I've carried had to do with things that I came in with.
Let me ask you something. You know, you talk about generational curses, and that's something that, you know, we've touched on. In fact, I've done some work recently in my own family line. There's Masons, my grandfather on my father's side, who I have very fuzzy recollection. I think he died when I was maybe 4, something like that. I have several memories of him, but I inherited his ring, and he was the master of his lodge. He was a um, you know, the highest 33-degree Mason, the highest thing you could possibly be. And I broke that off. I mean, I just went to the Lord and repented of that. In the name of Jesus, it stops here. It does not transfer. I don't want it. I mean, I did the work. What I mean by doing the work, I realized that this is going to carry down not only to me, but to my children and my children's children. So I did the work and I stopped it. It's interesting that you saw this Egyptian god, and you know it's huge. And when we look at Egyptian iconic, I'm saying icons. I'm trying to get to the other word, iconography. There we go. When we look at Egyptian iconography, it was right there. It wouldn't come out. They're often, these Egyptian gods are pictured as giants, and people, Egyptologists go, "Oh, well, that's just the way they show that they were big." No, they're really big. My question to you is, where's the link to this in your past? Have you been able to discover, was it generational? Was it something that you opened up? How, you know, why this Egyptian god showing up?
Well, the first thing before I answer your question, the first thing I'd like to say is what I found also really interesting is that as I went back to recall the memory of what happened to me, sometimes I would see like memory, I would have a memory of the Set, is what I found out his name was when I went and did my research. Would also have sometimes not the face of a horse, but have a face of a bull. And I thought, why is the face changing in my memory? This is so weird. And then I did more research and realized that they're one and the same. And I thought, wow, that's so weird. So even my memory became immersed with both. So I just wanted to point that out because I thought, you know, some of us have memories of things that we've experienced and they get clouded sometimes, but there might be answers there for people. There might be information that helps them heal deeper. So when I did research, oh, go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
When I did research and looked, I found out, like you, I have Masonic ties. There were some in the Scottish Rite. I found that out. I found I had Germanic ties. I found out I have Nordic ties that go right back to the Eric the Red. So I found out all of those ties. Did I find out anything about this Egyptian god? No. But I think that I opened that door personally. I think that that came in through things that I did. And so I was able to break that off without breaking off generations, but I also broke it off generationally because I wanted to break it off my daughter.
So when you went through this 2-week cathartic period with the Lord, and I've heard stories like this before, where I'll just tell you a quick one. There was a guy who was a total meth addict. I mean, completely. This guy's life was a train wreck. I won't get into the details. A train wreck. He's in a prison. He's in a jail cell. The next morning, he's going before a judge who's going to sentence him to, he's looking at 10 to 15 years, you know, in the slammer. I mean, that's his deal. and he cries out to
Mhm.
Jesus. This guy's a meth addict, okay? And he's like withdrawing. And his prayer, and he's like hit rock bottom. He's going before the judge in the morning. This is it, right? It's over. His life is over. 10 to 15 years, that's what he's looking at. It's over, right? And he's on his knees and he's crying out to the Lord. And the Lord shows up in the jail cell and heals him of the addiction. Bam. I mean, not like, this thing, complete healing. And he's like,
Yeah.
the next 10 hours or whatever it is, he's not sleeping. It's very cathartic. And the Lord's going this and this and this and this and this. And he's going through the litany like you were, thing after thing after thing, and repenting and on his face. And I've had things like that, but certainly not as dramatic as this guy in the jail cell. So here's the punchline. The next morning, he's clean and sober. There's no addiction. He's like a new man. He's born again. I mean, obviously, anybody who knows this guy can take one look at his countenance and go, wow. So he's before the judge, and the judge looks at him and he goes, son, I don't know why I'm doing this. I have no idea why I'm doing this, but you're on 5 years of probation, no jail time. I still don't know why I'm doing this. You deserve 15 years in the slammer, but I'm giving you probation. And once again, the whole courtroom, he's in tears. I mean, it's just like, it's one of those cushion shots that when the Lord shows up. So I realize that, people listen to your story and go, well, that's, she sees Jesus, and then all of a sudden it's this 2-week cathartic period. And I know, without knowing you at all, it's the first time we've met, that when he was showing you those things and you said you were on your face repenting, I've had a taste of that myself. You were on your face, you were repenting as the Spirit of a living God showed you incident after incident, and you asked for forgiveness and you got it out of your life and you repented. That's the miracle of Jesus.
Well, what I want to say is I never saw him. I felt
Okay.
him. He never revealed himself to me. So I want to be clear about that. I never saw his face, but I have seen demons' face. I've seen the devil's face. I have seen so much evil rear its head at me. And even without seeing Jesus, I knew he was more powerful, more real, more glorious than anything else that has ever been created, It was just incredible. So I I want to be clear about that just so that there's no misunderstanding. But I didn't have it that easy, because here's the thing: when I was going through this, I was actually running a class on how to enhance your psychic powers.
Oh my God.
So
Oh my God.
I had students in my class that all of a sudden, you know, I went from having a certain material to, okay, let me explain what's going to happen now. And so
Wow.
my adjustment period was really interesting because, I pivoted and brought a lot of people with me when I pivoted because, not, I mean, not everybody came. There was a couple that dropped away that thought, this isn't what I signed up for. But, for the most part, people who had faith, their faith deepened, people who didn't know, they came to know. And so it was a very interesting journey for me because I didn't know how to do this. I didn't know how to connect with people and to take them from one place I was taking them and shift them. But I just said, God, I'm going to just give this to you. And, I fumbled through it and then found my bearings. And it's been such a blessing because it's changed everything. It's changed my
Very
life
nice.
trajectory in every way I can imagine.
How long ago was this incredible conversion, if I can use that word?
This when I had my come to Jesus Thunderbolt moment, as I like to call it, that was April, May 2020. I think it was April 2020.
Not that
So
long
it
ago.
wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, well,
Mm-mm.
Jennifer,
So
welcome to the kingdom, and
yeah,
God
thank
bless
you.
you. I'll give you the last word, and you know, I'll just give you the last word. Go ahead.
Um, I just want everyone to know who's been in the new age, you know, here's the thing. All the things that the devil provides, you get instant gratification. think miracles can happen. They're just short-lived, or they have a price to pay, or both. And so I've seen miracles in that realm. I've seen things change, but nothing ever stayed. It was like, was it Ponyboy? Nothing gold can last, right? It was never permanent. But with God, everything is permanent, and it's at his time. So if you're willing to submit to that, there is great miracles, great satisfaction, and great joy and peace that you will never understand until you fully submit to him and let the Holy Spirit come in. And once that happens, you can read the Bible and you can understand so many things, and keep watching LA, because, he helps it make sense too. He puts pieces together. And I'm so grateful for you, LA. I just want to say that,
Praise
there's
the
a few
Lord.
pivotal people in my life that I don't trust a lot of people. And so when I hear the truth, though I know it, I've always been a lie detector, and now I really am. It's like superseded. So just find your way, and don't be afraid to change, because God will he will clear the path. He will make a way for you. Don't be afraid to change everything in your life. Don't be afraid, because there is no fear with God. That's all I have to say.
I like that last word. There is no fear. Perfect love. There is no fear. We've not been given a spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. Jennifer, thanks so much for coming on the record. Really appreciate it. So there you have it, folks. And I just love it the way, and I've heard this before, and you heard the story that I told about the man in the jail cell, completely overcome with addiction and paralyzed, and his whole life's a train wreck. And the Lord appears, and everything changes in a 24-hour period, actually less than 24 hours. Pretty amazing. God can do anything, except lie. He can't lie. That's one thing he cannot do. So I love this story because you can see that this woman was bound up in New Age thinking, in tarot cards, and Reiki, and in healings, and all this kind of stuff. And then she met Jesus. Didn't see him, but knew who he was, and everything changed. And she became born again and spirit filled. And you can see it in her countenance when she talks about the Lord, and how her face just brightens up. So thank you, Jennifer. If you have a story, if you have a supernatural confrontation, and you'd like to come on the record in a Zoom chat, shoot us an email, supernatural@lamarzulli.net. Supernatural@lamarzulli.net. Our intrepid producer, John Adam Hicks, will get back to you at some point. The queue is getting longer by the day, but we value your testimony. And if you're bold, adventurous, and daring enough to come on the record, shoot us an email, supernatural@lamarzulli.net. By the way, we are releasing He Is Risen. It's a musical representation of the Passion of the Christ, something I composed decades ago now. And this rendition of it happened in 2003. We're finally releasing it. The soloists are off the hook. It's incredible. And I think you'll find it interesting. And here's a small sample of it.
He was wounded for our sins and bruised for our iniquity.
He would only be our king. He would take the yoke of oppression from us. He would take the yoke of oppression from us. He would take the yoke of oppression from us. He would take the yoke of oppression from us. He would take the yoke of oppression from us. He would take the yoke of oppression from us. He would take the yoke of oppression from us. He would take the yoke of oppression from us. He would take the yoke of oppression from us. He would take the yoke of oppression from us. He would take the yoke of oppression from us. He would take the yoke of oppression from us. He would take the yoke of oppression from us. He would take the yoke of oppression from us. He would take the yoke of oppression from us. He would take the yoke of oppression from us. He would take the yoke of oppression from us. He would take the yoke of oppression from us. He would take the yoke of oppression from us. He would take the yoke of oppression from us. He would take the yoke of oppression from us. He would take the yoke of oppression from us. He would take the yoke of oppression from us. He would take the yoke of oppression from us. He would take the yo is torn inside. I tremble in my soul. My mind is dark and full of fear. Hope is gone.
By the way, I will be down at the Prophecy Watchers Conference in Orlando. The conference is sold out, but you can get live streaming. And I suggest you go to prophecywatchers.com, sign up for live streaming. You can watch all the events eating a bacon sandwich in your pajamas. What's better than that, right? Anyway, folks, that's it. We'll be back on Monday and with another supernatural confrontation story. Thanks so much for watching. Remember, the supernatural world is real. And it surrounds us. And sometimes it manifests to people like you and me. Thanks so much for watching.